Lighter is not working. That one does. It's a good night. Off work in the morning, so I am gonna get some videos wrapped up. I've got my coffee here with a little bit of sorghum in there. Locally made. I have I think I got everything here that I need. I am smoking this pipe here. This was gifted to me by Garrett Smokestacks. It's a Missouri Meerschaum. I don't know the name of this pipe. It's the only cob that I own. Well, the only real one that I own. There's a cheap one in there that somebody gave me that's not smokable, really. Really pretty pipe. I like this one. I've grown pretty fond of it. I've been smoking out of this quite a bit lately. In it, I am smoking Coalhouse and Cop. Coalhouse Cop and Company's Sillam's Green. This is good stuff. I'm using up the last of a sample that was gifted to me. I believe it was Jess Piping, I think. Thank you, Jesse. So, this is a video that I've been wanting to make for a while. Like most of my videos, I guess. And one of my favorite videos to watch, my favorite types of videos to watch, are people's cellars. I'll sit there for hours watching that stuff. There's something that really fascinates me about seeing what someone has collected and why, what kind of approach they took. You know, it's I don't care so much about how much a person has. If they've got 5 blends, I'm interested. Why those 5? You know, what do you think about them? I started off this thing from ground zero, knowing nothing, having nothing, and after a couple of years, I now have enough. I've got a big enough cellar that I think I can have a video that shows people what my thinking is and what my approach is. I'm not really groping around in the dark. I have finally hit the point where I'm buying with intention and making informed purchases. And it's fun, you know. It's the whole TAD thing has reached a different level now where I feel a lot better about the stuff that I buy, and I'm a lot more interested. There's a reason that I'm interested in something when I buy it. Yeah, so I've got enough now that I can kind of join the club, so to speak, and show you guys what I have. And by way of explanation, this is probably going to be a pretty long video. Bear with me. By way of explanation, I wanted to kind of go back to the beginning. I think it was my very first video that I bought 3 blends. The first 3 blends that I bought, and I explained why I got them. I'm going to try not to go in as much detail. You can watch that video if you want to, but just a quick recap so that it will make sense of the cellar that I'm about to show. I walked into, going to be hard to smoke and talk at the same time here. I walked into this pipe tobacco shop, I don't know now, 2.5, almost 3 years ago maybe? I can't remember. But I knew nothing. I had no idea where to start, what I was looking at. So many different blends, different colors, different smells, different types. It was overwhelming, you know, a wall full of jars. And I chose intentionally to go in as blind as possible, and I have tried to keep it that way, to try and learn as much as possible. Organically is the best word I can think of. I don't want to Google and get all the answers. A big part of this pipe smoking thing for me is I'm trying to tune out. Like, what is it? Turn on, tune in, drop out is what Leary said. I'm trying to you know, get away from the madness. I don't want information at my fingertips. It takes all the magic out of it. So I went in blind and determined to learn this thing organically. Sometimes you can't take that path. You have to kind of cheat or take a technological shortcut. It is what it is, you know. But for the most part, I've done pretty good at taking a natural approach and learning from people face to face or friends that I meet over the internet just through conversations. Anyhow, I'm rambling. I went into this shop and didn't know where to start. Wide variety, all very new and confusing, right? And it's like the best analogy that I can think of here is like a think if you've never had coffee before and you've never had milk before, and somebody hands you a cup that has a mixture of coffee and milk. You wouldn't be able to tell from drinking that what coffee tastes like or what milk tastes like. You wouldn't have a good understanding of either one, right? You wouldn't know if this is 70% milk and 30% coffee or the other way around. You'd have no way of knowing, and the only way you could find out is by separating the two. Give me a cup of straight coffee, give me a cup of straight milk, and let me try those by themselves to get familiar with them. So I know what coffee tastes like, and I know what milk tastes like. And now I can mix the two and have an appreciation for the kind of ratio, the mixture that's there, and any other things that might be added for flavor, or how, you know, they might change with temperature and all this stuff. I decided to take the same kind of an approach with the pipe tobacco stuff because it looked so overwhelming. And I did this both with the way that it looked and the way that it smelled. So I started off by looking for the darkest tobacco that they had. Then I picked the lightest that they had. And then I picked one that looked visually 50-50. It had, you know, it looked like it was about half light and half dark. As far as the smell goes, I picked the sweetest one that they had. I picked the one that smelled the least sweet. And then it turned out that the one that was visually in the middle was a totally different oddball. It was totally funky. I had never smelled anything like it before. It blew my mind right away. And I said, I got to find out more about this. These three blends were a Navy Flake, a Balkan, and of course, at the time, I had no idea what these words meant, and an aromatic. Those were the three that I had picked up. This turned out to be a very wise approach. It took some time for me to realize this, but it was a pretty good idea because as I went through my path of exploring and purchasing tobaccos, I came to learn that these three blends covered pretty much all of the basic varietals that are in most of the tobaccos that we smoke. There are many, as you well know, many different leaves, many different ways of preparing them. But by and large, these three categories covered the gamut that I would encounter regularly, right? In the Navy Flake, and obviously, again, I didn't know this. It took time to learn this by calling shops and talking to people. In the Navy Flake, there was Virginia, there was sometimes maybe Perique. That was how I understood it. In the aromatic, there was Cavendish and sometimes Burley. And in this Balkan, which I learned is also sometimes called in English, there was a leaf called Latakia, Orientals, and then sometimes one of the others that are present on the board here. Now, in addition to this, I also bought as a one-off purchase, because I saw a video where somebody was talking about it and said that it was delicious. It It was, what was it? What was it? Jackknife's Ready Rubbed. Jackknife's Ready Rubbed, which was a dark-fired Kentucky. It had DFK in it. And I also bought a thing of Nightcap, which I found out had a lot of the same stuff that was in the Balkan. Learning these different names and varietals set me off on my first course. I basically, these blends here, mostly these three, they were the root. They were the kickstart for my exploration path through tobacco, which was three-pronged. The first prong, or the first path, was to try each one of these and go down the list so that I could understand them better. If somebody hands you a cup of coffee and you've never had coffee before and they say, is it good or not good? How do you know what a good cup of coffee is unless you've had a variety of it, right? Like, let me try many different types of coffee and then I'll understand the subtle nuances between each one, and that'll give me some idea of what I think of this particular cup. Well, I thought I've got to do that with all of these. Each one of these varietals, I want to try as much of them as I can to understand what makes them different from each other. What are their unique characteristics? So the first path, or the first branch of my tobacco exploration path, was to go down each one of these categories. I decided to do a run for all of them. I wanted to smoke as many Periques as possible. I wanted as many Virginias as possible, as many Latakias, Orientals, and so on. So that was my first path. The other two paths that I took were, I wanted to try as many aromatics as I possibly could, because right away they were good, and it was clear that there was a lot of different flavors out there. And I wanted to know more about this Balkan thing. What is this word Balkan? What is that? Because it was mind-blowing. Immediately I fell in love with it. And I said, I've got to have anything and everything I can related to this Balkan stuff. And so those were the three paths that I took off right from the beginning. A varietal run, a run of every single type that's out there, an aromatic collection, and a search for the best Balkan I could find. So these three paths would determine how I explored tobacco for about the next 2 years. Purchasing was also kind of a methodological approach. I had basically two ways of buying things, and it boiled down largely to the difference between an aromatic or a small mom and pop store, what they had to offer, and the other stuff that I typically bought online. If you walk into a tobacco shop, you walk into a pipe shop somewhere, most of the time they got a bunch of jars up there for bulk, and they're dirt cheap. They're way, way cheaper, you know. An ounce, instead of being whatever, $12 to $20, $25, an ounce is like $5. So I let myself go nuts, you know. I mean, one of the paths that I'm taking is to collect aromatics and see if I can find, you know, how many really good ones I can find, just to have fun playing around and diving in. And they were super cheap, so I went nuts. When it came to aromatic tobaccos, I would just kind of cast a wide net. There were two basic ways that I would purchase tobacco. I would cast a wide net for aromatics and take them home. Just get a big handful, maybe 8 or 9 at a time. go home and go through them and see what I liked. For the other stuff, because I'm doing a more focused run, then I would take care to, it wasn't so willy-nilly, it wasn't so all over the place. You know, again, a focused purchase looking for something specific. I'm either looking for the best Balkan I can find, or I am looking for the best, most popular, or hidden secret Virginias, or Latakias, or Burleys. Either way, with those two paths, the best Balkan and the varietal runs, it's focused purchasing. And so, while I had 3 different paths that I was taking, the method of buying, and this is going to be relevant in a minute when I show you the Cellar. The method of buying was twofold. There was casting a wide net and making focused purchases. Now this makes, the reason I'm saying this, the reason I'm going into this is because it affected what my cellar looks like today to a great extent. Mainly because the aromatics were so cheap and I was casting a wide net, I wound up with a whole lot more of those than everything else. I bought so much on the front end of my exploration. Like, it takes time to make the focused purchases, right? To try them out, get accustomed to them, figure out what's in them, and use that information to go for the next varietal, you know, the next Virginia that you think might be a good representative of the varietal as a whole, or the next Balkan that might have a little more of that ingredient you liked in the last one. It takes time to do that, and it's more expensive. So I wound up with fewer of the focused purchases and a whole lot more of those tobaccos that were made by casting a wide net. As a result, right from the start, my cellar began to get really fat on the front end with aromatics. A ton of cheap aromatics, many of which I go back to now and can't smoke. The smaller portion were the focused purchases. It was those varietals, those Balkans. Now, by the time the Sutliff thing happened, I had learned enough. Right before Sutliff announced, or STG announced the buyout, I had learned enough. I had tried enough of all these different leaves that I had a good idea of which ones I wanted. Okay, I knew what my favorite Virginia was after trying several. I knew what my favorite Burley was after trying several, and on and on and on. And so all that focused purchasing that was thinner but more expensive had eventually turned into a list of informed purchases that I was going to make soon. And it was going to be costly. Fortunately, it panned out and I was able to pull it off right in the nick of time before all that stuff went away. And now I've got a cellar that has both a ton of aromatics that I got by casting a wide net and a lot of really good tobaccos that I chose through educated, informed purchasing. Not just focused, but informed and focused purchases. A quick side note, the varietals that I went through, I won't go through every single one of them because there are so many, and I'll talk more about that when I actually get into the cellar. But I started with the Navy Flake, which tore me up. It was horrible. I determined I'm going to find out everything I can about this thing. So Virginia was the first varietal run that I did. Virginias. Let's do VA, like that, okay? Second to that was Latakia, because the Balkan thing drove me nuts. So in addition to looking for the best Balkan/Englishes that I could find, I was also going for solo Latakias, looking for the best solo Latakias that I could find. My first 2 varietal runs that I went crazy with were Virginia and Latakia. Not long after that came Burley. I don't remember exactly why. After that was Orientals. I didn't need to really do a run on Cavendish, though I did buy some straight Cavendish and spent some time smoking some of them. But I didn't really need to do that because there's not a whole lot to Cavendish. And I was already smoking so many aromatics that I had a pretty good idea of what was in it. So the varietals, the straight runs, mostly consisted of these. Anytime I could break one of them down a little bit better, I would. The Oriental, for example, I'm still trying to split that between like Turkish or Smyrna. I would love to have a bunch of Orientals and go through each of the runs. I read somewhere that there's like 200 different varietals of it. I don't know if that's true. No. Someone in the YTPC said that. Who said that? I don't know. I assume it's true. They know more than I do. But I'd like to dive deeper into the different types of Orientals that there are. With Burley, I went, you can really kind of split Burley between the big and bold stuff and then the smooth stuff. The smoot stuff, right? Smooth, I discovered codgers. And so then this kind of morphed into its own thing where I'm not just doing a varietal run on Burleys, I'm doing a run on codgers, and I'm doing a run on big and bold stuff. Samoa, for example, Five Brothers, for example, right? That became two different paths. Two different paths of Burleys. Latakia also splits into two. There is Syrian and Cypriot. There can be some argument over whether or not you can split it in other ways as well, but loosely speaking, this is what you've got. I am on the search for Syrian Latakia. I have a jar that I was told I got it at a cigar shop from a guy that had some old school McClellan stuff. He claimed that it was Syrian Latakia, but he didn't sound confident when he said it. I have kept it in a jar untouched until I've smoked enough of everything else to be able to tell if there's anything different from it. And when I feel like I know Latakia well enough that I'll be able to tell if something is really different or unique, then I'm going to crack that open and see. Meanwhile, I'm on the search for purchasing a Syrian Latakia. The next phase of my tobacco purchases will be pricey stuff. Intentionally purchasing hard to get stuff. Focused purchases, stuff that I'm going to cherish and just, smoke a little bit of here and there as like a special occasion kind of thing. That is going to include some, like vintage Syrian, other ideas that I'm not going to go into right now. The Oriental splits, several different ways. Virginia's, there is obviously, and I learned all this as I went along, right? I break it down into brights and reds. Of course, you can go even deeper than that, right? There's stoved, you get the idea. There's a whole lot of other stuff. Brights and reds. So I've done runs on both of those. These runs, these 4 that I have listed here, turned into at least 2, 4, 6, and like 3, 4, however many or the Orientals. You got several more here. And again, Codgers, Dark Fired Kentucky. The original, one of the first 10 that I got of that Jackknife Ready Rub, didn't like it at all. Much like the Navy Flake, I was like, I got to learn more about this stuff so I can figure out why people are smoking it on purpose. They got to be out of their minds. So I started a Dark Fired Kentucky run and did eventually come across one that blew my mind, unlocked it for me, and I got it. And now DFK is one of my favorites. The same thing happened with Virginia, by the way. That Navy Flake, I hated it so much, on a whim, I put it in this can. Nope, no product placement. This is the original Navy Flake. I don't know if you're going to be able to see anything in here. It's been sitting in this can in the shed. I hated it so much that I tried to treat it like trash to make myself feel better. And I just threw the remainder of that first Navy Flake, first pipe tobacco purchase, included this stuff right here. There's about 2 bowls worth in there. I threw it in this can and left it in this shed. It's been sitting there for almost 3 years. Is that right? Like 2.5 years. Yeah. Right? And I told myself one day, if I ever get to the point where I feel like I understand Virginia, I get it, even if I don't like it, I kind of understand it, I'm going to go back to this can and open it up and smoke it and see what I think. Yeah, it's real stupid to leave it in the shed if that's the goal, but I was that angry with it. And I'm going to stick to my guns and the promise that I made to myself, and I'm going to smoke this stuff. Soon. Probably soon. I'm also going to revisit Jackknife's Ready Rubbed because I understand Dark Fired Kentucky now, and it's become one of my favorites. And I've gotten to the point where I'm starting to be able to tell the difference between different blending houses, right? Like a Cornell and Deal tobacco, I can taste it. I can tell that's Cornell and Deal. They taste grassy, earthy to me. A lot, unadulterated, unmolested, very pure, natural, organic leaves is what I get from a Cornell and Deal blend. I can tell when I smoke one. Gawith and Hogarth also tastes natural, very high quality, but it's different. It's a warmer tone to their leaves. There's some quality there that feels tamed a little bit somehow, smoothed, rounded out. Not as definable, not as sharp as what you get with a lot of Cornell and Deal leaves. Anyhow, these are the ways that I started purchasing tobacco. 3 paths and 2 methods of buying. And I finally got to a point where I've got a cellar that I'm pretty happy with. I'm very happy with. Now it's time to show you.